bunch of potato chomping meat shields.
The youth can't be saved. It has nothing to do with Mortal Kombat.
Welcome to Then You Ruined It, a podcast where two friends who refuse to meet in real life give each other plenty of reasons to stick to that opinion.
All right, Jason, I need you to settle a bet for me. If I were to say, Jason, I'm going to throw you a blanket party, how would you respond?
Throw me a blanket party.
Like, do you know what a blanket party is?
I mean, no, I don't think I do, because that's the part that perplexes me. I have ideas, and you can tell me how wrong they all are.
We can play hot or cold.
Okay. Blanket party, where every gift you give is a blanket.
Cold.
Oh, darn. I was kind of hoping that would be at least close, because that was my best guess. Okay, blanket party, where the entire party takes place under a blanket that's like kept up by a bunch of chairs.
No, that's just a 4-year-old's tea party.
Okay.
Or a Dutch oven party, depending on the context.
Nah, you don't close it. It's just over your heads. That's cruel, especially if you invite me. Okay, but you didn't say hot or cold.
Oh, that one is, I'm going to say warmer.
Okay.
Warmer than your first one. You're getting warmer.
Okay. Blanket party, one where you just have it like picnic style on a blanket.
Getting colder.
Oh, darn it. Okay, over your head, blanket party. Where you all wear blankets fashioned like capes like you were 7 years old.
No. Cool.
Okay, I'm gonna have one more guess and then I'm just gonna let you go with it. Blanket party. Blanket party. It's like the pillow fights that all guys imagine when they think of like girls' sleepovers, but exclusively male.
Pretty warm.
Oh no. I was afraid of that.
That's as close as you get. So a blanket party is when you throw a blanket over one of your stupid friends' heads and everyone punches them while they can't see.
Oh God, I'm glad I didn't guess. That's not a party. That's just...
I mean, it is for everyone but the one.
I mean, yeah, but how do you not be the one? Like, what is the criteria for why did they deserve this? It's just you're hanging out with buddies and one time you see a blanket and you're like, blanket party! And everybody throws the blanket on the one person and you hope you're not it. And then just hockey fights ensue.
I mean, it is very hockey fight-ish. So whoever decides to instigate the blanket party would just choose their victim. So, I mean, in the utopian society that was mid-90s Idaho, it was very evenly spread out. I believe we all had a turn under the blanket, and we all got our turns outside the blanket. And I think that's how the world should be. We all need to suffer a little so that those around us can have joy. This is what fatherhood has taught me. This is what being an adult has taught me. This is just like being part of society. I mean, sometimes you're under the blanket, and sometimes you're punching your friend as hard as you can, and they don't know it was you.
It's cruel, obviously. It's not fun. It's just going to be awkward afterwards. This one friend hates all of you now, especially the person that instigated it, unless you beat them down hard enough that they like can't breathe. It's like you have to go home and recover, and tomorrow you'll think about what that blanket party was for.
Okay, first up, I'm going to disagree with you.
Of course you are. You did it.
It's very fun. Hauling off and punching somebody really hard when they're not looking because somebody else threw a blanket on their head? That's awesome. Second, like, this is what teaches people dexterity and how to live with their own mistakes. Because once the blanket is off, you can't be punched anymore. So it's all about how quickly you can get the blanket off your head before everyone starts wailing on you. So if no one's expecting it, like a full ambush blanket party, usually only a couple shots get in and then you got the blanket off your head.
The rules are now intriguing me. So is it a rule that once the blanket's on, you can't like hold the blanket on the person and just punch them indefinitely?
Well, your punches put it back on every time. So that's why you got to get a lot of people punching, because it's really hard to take a blanket off your head when everyone is punching that blanket.
Yes, especially when all you're thinking is, why am I with these assholes? It's just betrayal, the game. It's like you're walking down the street and it's like, oh, it's Tim's turn to be pushed in front of a bus. Oh man, you guys got me. Oh, I almost died. That was really close. Like that's all this is just trauma, friendship.
I don't think it is.
It is.
I think it's just friendship.
I would not have had. I had friends that were so loyal and devoted and loving that we just stayed up all night playing Micro Machines on Nintendo 64 together. Never once did the thought of covering them in a blanket and punching them to my own delight enter my mind. That's not the kind of thing we did. And I grew up in Kansas, which we've established is somewhat similar to Idaho in a lot of ways.
I think it's less similar than you're letting on, because you didn't do this thing.
I mean, yeah, and I think with good reason. I think you guys are brain damaged, and it's not normal. Like, nobody does that. That's the kind of thing that somebody talks about. Like, when somebody, and I don't want to make light of this, but if somebody is like a school shooter, and they're like, you go to the neighbors afterwards, and it's like, so what was he like? What was he quiet? Was he was he a troublemaker? It's like, well, no, they were pretty normal boys. They all played together. They would do this thing they called blanket party. And for whatever reason, he was always the victim.
I disagree 1000% now. We are just amping up the disagreement. First off, you and your friends were not loyal. You can't say you were loyal because your friendship was never tested. Anyone can stay friends when they're just playing a game. You want to know if someone's really your friend? Throw a blanket on their head and sock them right in the back of the head. And if they'll still hang out with you, yes, they are a loyal friend. And they will have your back no matter what. And you will have theirs. And then, you're right, you should not always throw the blanket on the same kid. That is bullying. But if it's either equally spread throughout the proletariat, then it's fine. It's just the cost of doing business. It is the sacrifice we make. It's like tithing or putting money in the authoring plate. It's something that you give...
He's laughing because I
can't
disagree.
Double bird on the
I disagree
podcast.
so vehemently with him. I had to just flip him off because that's my only recourse while he's spewing whatever this is landing on my computer screen right now. Sorry. First time in our history I've had to do that, but...
I'm amazed I've gone this long without getting the double dancing bird.
Yeah.
They weren't
that's
even
all
the
it
solid.
was.
Like, he had to keep repeating.
I'll bring them in from the side. Here they come. What do you want? Oh, here it comes from above. You gotta watch out. All sides.
And see, here's the thing, Jason. Now, you see, your only recourse to someone saying something you don't like is the double bird. Whereas if you lived in Idaho, you would know you could throw a blanket over my head and punch me.
I would not want to take part in that. Like, I would not punch because I wouldn't want that done to me. And if it was done to me, I would just leave. I'd be like, and I'm done. Like, it didn't take me long to get to a point where I said, well, I'm done with this group, but you put blankets over each other's heads and punch. I mean, that's you've told me about many things you did in Idaho because you were bored. But this is by far the dumbest. There's no intelligence to it. You're very possibly making each other stupider because you're just adding brain trauma to each other and you're evening it out. So it's like, oh, we're all equally dumb. We're going to keep thinking this is a good idea. We have to finally give him a blanket party because he's smartening up. Getting too wise to all this dumbass tomfoolery.
Here's the thing. I can also tell that you've never been at a blanket party because there is no better defense than hurriedly taking a blanket off. That blocks actually... You can haul and punch as hard as you want, and you're not really going to do that much damage because the loose blanket absorbs almost all of it. Very little contact happens. I never remember getting seriously hurt doing that. There were a lot of other things where I got seriously hurt, and I think I broke a bone once. But it was also the way we policed ourselves. Like, if you stepped out of line, you blanket partied them. If someone was farting a lot, you blanket partied them. If someone was reading above grade level, yeah, you blanket parted them because, we're all on the same bucket level for a reason. Equality. No child left behind.
I love all of this. I love how groups of kids in Idaho would make sure they all stayed on the same intelligence level. Braining each other until you're dumb. It's like, there you go. Now you can't read that, can you? Read this book. Read this page to me. Oh, he read it. Blanket party him. Just beat you until your reading comprehension goes down.
It was either that or teach the dumb kids how to read, and what are we going to do?
So many other things. But I'm not going to mention them because I'm enjoying vicariously living whatever hellscape you kids made for yourselves. Like I hear people talk about the kids these days. It's like, oh man, we used to, like just walk across town to Tommy's house and we'd play, and then our parents didn't care as long as we were back by dark. It didn't matter. We could do whatever we wanted. And I'm like, yeah, but if you're covering each other in blankets and punching each other as hard as you could, I'm glad that's no longer a thing. I'm glad we have the internet. That phone is keeping you from giving your friend brain trauma.
Oh, instead we're just going to cyberbully each other and expose each other to dangerous alternate politics. The Nazis did not come back in the 90s, Jason. The Nazis did not come back in the 90s. You can't Sig Heil when you're under a blanket. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, I'm not going to defend that. I'm not going to be party to that. I'm going to say that sounds dumb and move on.
Yeah, and if you know your history, there were plenty of alt-right movements in the 90s. It was also a time of great civil unrest. I'm not going to pretend that we didn't have domestic terrorism in the 90s. That's pretty ignorant of our own history.
I figured you knew that. I just... In fact, you feel like you have to walk that back. It's like, by the way, I know the Oklahoma City bombings were a thing in the 90s. Now, I will say, if you want to talk about getting a blanket off your head quick, you be one of my kids and throw a blanket on my head shortly after I've put product in my hair in the morning. You want to talk about getting out of a blanket party? Oh my God. Do not touch the coif.
We just did a podcast where you have taken so little care of your body that you're just in sweatpants with the buttons undone, and yet you care about your coif?
Oh, yeah.
How am I the one with brain damage? Like, you don't make any sense.
I've gotten it through using too much hairspray. You got it through blanket parties. I'd say which of us is the worst, but I really don't know at this point. And it doesn't matter either.
You said this was the most Idaho thing. I need to tell you about our other game. When we were really little, soccer was the big thing to play. We'd have this big roving soccer game. None of us really knew how to play actual soccer, but we were all on little soccer teams, and we thought we were the next Pele, and we had a great time. But as some of the kids started transitioning into football, they wanted to play football during recess. And so we got a football, and we were playing football, and it was fine for a while because we were playing two-hand touch. And then people were like, two-hand touch is for pussies. We're not, they can't tell us what to do. We're going to play tackle football. And we're like, oh yeah, okay, of course. So we all played tackle football out on the playground. And the teachers caught word of that, and they're like, okay, if you can't play two-hand touch, we're going to take the footballs away. We didn't do two-handed touch, so we got the footballs taken away. And so we're like, well, now what are we going to do for recess? And this was in early winter, probably before Christmas. So it had just started snowing, and there was a nice, fluffy blanket of snow all over the playground. And we're like bundled up in our big poofy snow coats and everything. And then one of our friends invented a new game. And the name of the game was Tackle, where you would just find another kid and tackle him. And then you'd both get up, and then you'd go to find two more kids. There were like 30, 40 kids just running around on this kickball field, tackling each other into the snow, jumping up and going and find somebody else. Absolute bedlam. So much more dangerous than football, where maybe like there's like, I don't know, 20 tackles a recess period. There were probably 200 tackles per recess. It was just boom, tackle, boom, tackle, boom, tackle. And we're bouncing off the snow and we're having a great time. We're like, this is the best game ever. And we did this for like a week. And then the teachers came out and they're like, no, you are not playing tackle. There is a strict ban on the game tackle. You can't play any game that involves tackling. And we're like, this is unfair. This is an infringement of our rights. And this was about the time that we were learning about, it must have been in January because we were studying Martin Luther King.
Do not bring the good doctor into this, sir.
Oh, we brought the good doctor into this. I feel bad that we minimized what he stood for and
just a bit
brought it into our little problem. So what we did take from it, though, was that peaceful protest is the way that you stand up to authority. So we organized a sit-in. And so for recess, we all went out and we just sat on the ground for the entire recess. And the teacher was like, this is the best they have ever been. This is the perfect recess activity. It worked. We stood up to these kids and said, no more tackling, and they listened. And so nobody learned anything. No one improved. And a few weeks later, we found another football. We went back to football.
Okay, so you're absolutely correct in that is the most Idaho thing I've ever heard, which I'm going to spell it back to you just to lay it all out to say, see how stupid this sounds? So, you play football, already extremely violent sport. Kids can play even more violently because they don't get the pads and the helmets and everything else you need to protect yourselves. So, you're playing that sport. They take the ball away. Okay, let's just play tackle. Let's take the football out of football and just tackle each other. All right, mindless fun for dumb kids, whatever. Then you get that taken away because you're doing it too violently and too much. So you call upon the example of the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to stage a sit-in and sing "We Shall Overcome" because they took away the game you were trying to play where you would intentionally injure each other.
Yep. Nailed it.
I should have stated like 30 or 40 white kids stage a sit-in singing "We Shall Overcome." Give us back our violent game. It's like all those hearings you heard in the 90s on violent video games in Washington. Man, if anybody could have seen video of you idiots in Idaho, I think we would have been case closed. They playing video games? No. They're just dumb kids out in a field somewhere tackling each other. And now this is what's happening. And see you guys doing sit-in. It's like, oh no, the youth can't be saved. It has nothing to do with Mortal Kombat.
We got to get these kids books. Well, they can't read. They threw a blanket party for each other the other day, and now they're all like 2 grade levels back.
I'm sorry, a what party? Then explain that to them. It's like, okay.
Close it down. We're going full Ruby Ridge on the whole state.
Yeah. Can we just secede Idaho? Can we just give it to Canada? It'll make Canada look really weird with a little appendage coming off. But
oh, that'd have been awesome. The Canadians would have seen us, and they're like, this is a whole state full of hockey enforcers. This is perfect. Teach those guys how to skate. We need them stat.
You're not wrong. That is how they would have seen the entire state. We can use these guys.
All we're good for.
I mean, if the shoe fits.
A bunch of potato chomping meat shields.
That's exactly what it sounds like, yes. And I'm thankful that I have you to lay out something that's like, see, we had this to do. We weren't that dumb. It's like, no, you were super dumb. Oh, but I'm glad I know about it now. Now I know to avoid if anybody ever invites me to a blanket party. Hell no! Throw a blanket on their head and just start punching them. I got you first!
So the funniest thing is, there is a multi-level marketing company in Utah and Idaho that just sells blankets. So you will now get invited to a blanket party where it's just some girl boss mom trying to sell you really fluffy blankets. And it's so disappointing when you know what you could be doing.
Oh, no, I think it'd be funny if you show up. It's like all these, like 30, 40-year-old moms. And it's like, oh, man, this is not where this 40-year-old man should be, hanging out. But okay, I guess he's here for this product launch. All right, let's see what he has to say. And halfway through, you're just sitting there with the blanket, just waiting like, is nobody going to try and throw a blanket on my head? What's going on?
Be like, I throw it over someone's head, punch him in the temple, and like, you don't know who did that, do you?
No, it was the one man. None of us joined in. Kick his ass, ladies.
If they threw him a blanket over my head,
no,
it would be legal.
No, keep the blanket off. I want you to know who did this, you dumbass. You came to my blanket party and tried to punch my friend in the head. We're all gonna beat you, and you're gonna know our names.
This isn't for the Soviet Republic.